December 26th, I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
And December 29th, I got a letter from Uncle Sam to report to Fort Niagara, you know. So they put us on a bus and took me to Fort Niagara, and they swore me in there. Then they took me from there to Fort Dix and assigned me to wherever I was going to go. And they sent me to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And that was in February. And that was
of 43, right?
43, yeah. And that was the coldest goddamn place I ever been. Honest to God, it was cold there. And, you know, it's kind of flat, and the wind just... So I was there about 2 weeks. And they sent me to St. Petersburg, Florida for my calisthenics, you might call them.
Yeah, basic.
Basic, you know. Marching and getting up in the morning and you know, getting exercise, all that shit. Then they put me into the Army 5th Air Force, or Air Corps, Army Air Corps 5th.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then from there they sent me to Fort Lauderdale, to a school for radio or some bullshit. Then from there they sent me to Boca Raton, and I got into classes for radar. You know, back then there was a special transmitter, and whenever you had something in the class, 2 guys came in the room with a box, and in the box was the tube for the activation of it, you know. Then from there they sent me to Madison, Wisconsin. And then from there I went to Nashville, Tennessee. And then from there I went to San Jose, California. And they put me on the Matsonia lines, a big ship, to Australia. And that took about 5 days. I was there maybe about 2 weeks. And they had a hell of a time down there going with the servicemen.
They came, they saw, they conquered, and how? 10,000 Australian brides, in fact.
Most of the girls there, the Army fellows say, you know, they're walking around with a mattress on their back. You know, the reason for that was that if you met a girl, you know, go to USO and all that, you know, and the girls be there to dance and, you know, and, hey, you want to come home tonight, meet my mother and father? Oh, yeah, okay, you know. So you get there, you know, and you see the mother and father and bullshit, and the old man or the wife would say, what would you like for breakfast? You know? And you'd think, hey, what the hell's going on, you know? So you spend the night there, you know, in the morning, you know, have breakfast, and, you know, and what the girls were doing back then, like say I was there for a week or two, they'd make me as a friend and, hey, marry my daughter, you know, because you did this, you did that, you know?
Right.
So what the girls were doing, they'd marry you and you're gone. Marry him and he's gone. Everybody had a $10,000 life policy, you know? So they'd marry 4 or 5 or 6 people. Then the Army got wind of it, you know? So they kind of squashed that bullshit about marrying the Australian girls.
Wow, never heard that one. That's crazy.
Ain't it?
Yeah.
Then from there they sent me to Port Moresby, New Guinea. And then I went to Bayak. And then from there I went to Aui. Then I went to Hollandia. Then from there I went to Morotai. And from Morotai I went to Leyte. And Leyte I went to Mindoro. And that's where I had control of a radar station. And I was there probably about well, maybe a year. And I had a radar station right near an airport there, or a strip. And we had a transmitter there, and a generator and a house and all that crap. And transmit a letter. It wasn't like the radar we got today. Right. It was basically a homing device. The tower's here, and then it would rotate 360 degrees, and every 20 degrees was a different letter. Like one was A, one is B, one is C. And if you're out there 300, 400, 500 miles, coming back home, you had a general idea you're supposed to go east or west, you know?
Right.
But when you're flying, say, toward the station, if you're on A and you go into B, you know you're supposed to turn right and continue, you know? Or if you were C, you turn left and continue. And stay on A till you could see where you're going, you know, see the airport or whatever it was, you know? And then you would land, you know? And that's the way you got back home without getting lost, you know?
Right.
They used to have probably about 12 airplanes. They were all B-24s. They would take off in the morning and go what they had to do, you know, and then come back on that. The incident that I ever seen was one of the B-24s took off, and they only had 2 propellers on them, and one motor was starting to cough and spit, you know. So they told him to come back and land, you know, and he had to drop all his bombs and start dropping a lot of gasoline, and he came back to the landing strip, and he was luckily flying, you know. So he put his landing gear down, and when it done, it broke the landing gear. And then the plane took a nosedive and tipped over and started burning, you know. So 8 fellows on the airplane didn't make it, you know. So what they would do, they'd take a bulldozer then and push it back in the goddamn jungle, and the airstrips back then, they'd come in with a bulldozer and level everything off. Then they had these steel mats, and they'd interlock, and they interlocked them and make a runway for the airplanes, you know. And well, I was there for a while, you know. And then the war came to an end, and they sent me to Manila, and they sent me to Luzon. I was there maybe about a week or 2. We got out of the islands. We hit a goddamn typhoon, and the waves were 90 foot high, and the boat was 635 feet long. And that damn thing, you know, it'd go up one wave and down the other one. And my bunk was right in the nose of that son of a bitch. And when that come down, you know, pow, you know, it lifted you right out of the cot. And it listing 38 degrees, even the sailors on it were getting sick, you know. And if that thing would have rolled to 40, 45 degrees, it'd have sunk, you know. But that was around 4 or 5 days, and we got clear sailing all the way down.
Did you get sick?
No.
No. Tough guy.
No. Yeah, you got to watch what you're doing. No liquids, nothing that crap, and dry stuff like crackers and bread and things like that. And you had the urge, but I never did it, you know. I was rationing with 4 different outfits, and each outfit once a month would give you a case of beer and a carton of cigarettes. So I get 4 cartons of cigarettes and 4 cases of beer. Then the buddy I had with me in the service there, he didn't want to drink or smoke. So he got the same amount, you know?
Yeah.
So I had this beer and I had this cigarettes, and man, you could, after about a week or 2, it was gold, you know? And we had cots that were from the Navy and the hospitals, the white, you know, had mattresses and white sheets and blankets and pillows and all that. And we lived pretty good.
So and that's from the barter system.
Basically,
Yeah.
you know. And I had the Seabees come up there one time, and they built a nice porch out front.
Ah.
You know. Then I got some lounging chairs from somebody, you know. And my captain, Captain Piecer, he'd come up once a week on a Thursday, and he'd sit down in that chair and he'd look out over and you'd see the ocean and all this, you know. And he says, "God damn it, Nick, you got it made, you know what?" So, "Hey, Captain, you want a cold beer?" "Yeah," you know. I give him a cold beer. I says, "How about a cigar?" You know. So that was basically my Army service, you know. Well, this one fellow from New York, they used to call him Goldie. And that's the one that didn't drink or smoke, you know. And they used to give you a pill, Atabrine. It was green, and you chewed that or swallowed it. So for malaria, and he would chew one of them damn things, and they were the bitterest sons of bitches you could think of. And he'd sit there and just chew them like candy, you know. I said, "Goldie, how the hell do you do that?" When I got to Long Beach, they put me on a train to Fort Dix. And then from there, I took a train to Westville. And my mom and dad thought I would get off the train in Buffalo, you know. So they drove up to Buffalo. They got the time when it roughly get there, you know. And the train never stopped in Buffalo. It stopped in Westville. So I got off there. Then they had a streetcar service from Westfield to Jamestown. And that was over toward the boat landing, you know. Then you got off there and you got on a city bus, and I got off on the corner of Main and 3rd. And I walked into a restaurant, had a cup of coffee or that, and I think I'll go home now, you know. So it was like the high school, you know, basically a walk, you know. So I walked home and nobody was there, you know. I turned the lights on, nobody was home. So I said, "What the hell's going on, you know?" So I opened the refrigerator and there was a pie in there. I had a piece of pie and coffee, you know. In the meantime, here comes my mom and dad up the driveway, you know.
Oh, God.
You know, and they were glad to see me, and I was glad to see them. And then from there, you know, I joined what they call a 5220 club. You get $20 a week for a year. And after about 6 months, they get on your ass, you know. "Hey, you know, you should be getting a job, you know." So I finally got a job at Blackstone. Discharged, I think, in February of '46.
So you were in the service literally from December of '42 through February of '46.
Yeah. A lot of things that happened in the service are with the Marines. They were the first people to land on a beachhead or invade an island with all these goddamn dugouts in them, you know? And they were the ones that suffered the most, really. And then they would build the beaches. From there, they would build the airports, landing strips, all that. Then the fellas followed, you know. And I think maybe a Marine would have more response as far as fighting, you know, because they did the fighting, the cleanup, and all we did was come back and fortify them, you know, because I might be, say, 500 miles away from an island, which they went out and bombed all the time, you know. But the airplanes would every morning, Christ. They get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast. At 5:30, they're jumping in an airplane to take off.
Right.
You know?
Well, you were all part of a big machine.
Oh, yeah. You know? I would say being friends with everybody. You know? Don't have enemies or people that might be enemies, you know?
Well, I thank you. Thank you for your time today. This has been fabulous.